Oh my goodness. Can't take you anywhere.
No, you really can't. I'm being bad today.
This whole episode's gonna be us being bad. As Ian says, like, tell me I'm a bad podcaster. Such a good clip. Anyway, let's get this going. Hello and welcome to Fall Through, your source for deep conversations about technology, software, and computing. I'm your host, Chris Brando, also known as Scriptable, and in today's episode, we're gonna talk about how mid this industry is, and then go from there, because, Matt and I, we're no strangers to controversy, but there's been some things happening in the industry lately where we're just like, man, this stuff's really mid. It's really mediocre. And maybe we should have a chat about it and see, maybe there's some things we can do to make things a little bit better. As per usual, there's going to be bonus content for our supporters. So if you're not a supporter, head on over to fallthrough.fm/subscribe and sign up today. And if you're not following us on socials, please give us a follow there. And if you're on YouTube, hit that like button and that subscribe button while you're at it. And with that, let's get into the show. Hello, viewer, listener. Hope you're having a good day. It's a nice, bright, sunny, if not cold day here in New York. And it's another episode of just Matt and me. I think the end of the year is going to be a lot of Matt and me. Although we do have what I think will be a really fun episode planned. We're going to talk a lot about design and get really nerdy about a lot of design stuff. And we have a guest for that, so it's going to be really fun. But for today, it's just Matt and me. And Matt, how are you doing today?
Great. I'm glad that you want to have this conversation because I'm feeling extra spicy this morning. Let's just say that I yelled at the Figma survey prompt, the modal. You know how like a site to pop up for like, how do you like this thing? I yelled at it this morning. So that's how my day was starting.
Feeling spicy. Very spicy.
Yeah. I feel bad. Someone's going to have to read that. And I didn't say anything bad. I used an expletive or two.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the modern day.
Yeah.
If you're not swearing at something, are you really giving the honest truth?
I'm saying.
Yeah. But no, I kind of thought about this topic because I've been doing some research lately on different things, and there was this really interesting thing that happened in the Go issue queue a few years ago where like Roy Fielding, yes, that Roy Fielding, the guy that basically created HTTP and has shepherded it for the last quarter century, dropped in and commented on something Go was doing, and it was like, this is just wrong. Why are y'all doing this? And there was a lot of pushback from the Go team as far trying to be like, no, we're doing things correctly. And Roy's just there like, no, y'all are doing, this is weird. Why are you doing this? And I found that very, very odd. So it's one of the things I kind of put in my hat of like, this is an odd thing that is happening. And then I also saw, actually, I think it was Dylan posted in a fall through channel about Bill Kennedy having some issues with tags inside of a repository, trying to tag something for versions for a Go module he had. And that just kind of reminded me, like, oh yeah, even after all of the cleanup we've done on modules, they're still pretty janky to use at times. They're kind of unintuitive. And then I also saw that the former Go tech lead, Russ Cox, was on ACM Bytecast. And there was some fanfare about that and him being a distinguished engineer and all of that. And those things just kind of got me in my feels a little bit, I'll say. Because like, while Go has accomplished so much, and while we as an industry have accomplished so much, it feels like we're still ratcheting our expectations down to like the most mediocre of things. And I just really want to talk about that because it's really frustrating on one level, but also deeply saddening on another level that like we as an industry are not excelling as much as we could be. And we're not really selling the things that we're doing well as much as we could be. I think I talked a couple episodes ago about how annoying, I'm gonna say upset, but how annoying it is that like we have all these cool digital tools now under the label of AI. I prefer to call them like LLMs or digital librarians that are like extremely useful, but they've been shadowed over by all of this like hype that we just constantly have, like hype everywhere all of the time. And I think that we all need to have like a conversation about this. So I think Matt and I are going to start trying to have this conversation about like, how do we get our industry to be less mediocre? And how do we actually be honest with ourselves about like the things that we're doing that are leading to us being mediocre? So Matt, do you have any thoughts on that? Or do you have anything to add? Have you seen some mid or mediocre things that our industry has been doing
Well,
lately?
yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. And like, I guess depending on how we talk about this, you're probably going to get someone somewhere saying like, oh, Matt and Kris, you're just jealous that you're not a distinguished engineer and blah, blah, blah. You could have done that. It's like, you know what? Maybe there's an element of truth to that depending on the lens you look through. But also like life is more than just our jobs, right? So it's like I look at some of these distinguished engineers or people that put all of their life into their career, and like you don't have anything else outside of that, right? So there's a lot of nuance there. I don't necessarily want to get into that per se, but I will say that I've been looking at people, on LinkedIn or on social media and the things that they do, and I'm like, y'all give a lot of these people who really don't do much or really don't know much, you give them a lot of credit when they don't really do or know much. And we can stop doing that. Like I am a staff engineer by 25. It's like, yeah, because you freaking learned to code at age 2. That's not the reality of most people. Like it's weird. But then you have like the opposite end of the spectrum. Everyone's a VP, which means nobody's a VP. So you just have this weird way of like how mediocrity kind of hides in the system, and we should just talk about it.
Yeah. No, I think I feel this way too about Go, because it's like, I'm still figuring out how I want to approach like building a new tool chain for Go. Because I think like every time I sit down and like work on a Go project, I'm just frustrated by how constraining the Go tool feels. Like both how constraining and how much it doesn't do, right? I'm like, oh, you got to do Go generate, go make a shell script, but then also it just feels still feels so paternalistic, and I feel like that's kind of a microcosm of the wider industry of like there is still a lot of paternalism out there. There is still a lot of people telling you like how you should think, what you should want, like, oh, we got to protect you from yourself or from the things that might do. I mean, to some degree, there's a bit of that when it comes to even like the Rust world, where it's like, oh yes, we need to have this memory safety because we need to protect engineers from themselves. I'm like, lots of people write very good C code that doesn't have memory problems. So it's like there's a little bit of paternalism all over the place, and you will always have that. But it's like, how much is enough and how much is too much? And I feel like when it comes to like Rust, there's a good amount of it. I mean, there's still like the crazy little corner of Rust that's like, we got to rewrite the whole world in Rust so it's protected. But for the most part, Rust stations are not like that. But with Go, it does. I still feel the paternalism so heavy in the language, and it's just, and I'm like, and for what? Like, I don't feel like I have a better language at the end of the day for it, which is where I get back to like that mediocrity of like, when I look at modules and I look at it compared to like, I'm getting back into PHP and look at it compared to Composer or compared to like NPM or compared to other things, it feels oddly constraining. And I think there's a lot of things that go into like why it feels that way, but it's like, I don't know, it feels weird. I want to fix it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how we're still here though. I guess that's like the thing I'm trying to say is like, I don't understand how when people are still struggling so much with modules, we still haven't figured out how to fix the problems. And like, what does that say about us as a community and as an industry that we can't figure out how to fix these types of problems that people are struggling with on a daily basis? Or on the other hand, I feel like even if I, sometimes when I bring this stuff up, I get the hand wave of like, well, most people don't have this problem. Most people aren't having issues with modules. They love modules. It's working great for them. And I'm just like,
Like, I don't know. It's tough because I think there's an element, and again, I don't really want to like ding on Go per se. You know what I mean? Because it's not a Go thing specifically. It's really if you look in the industry, it's everywhere. We just happen to be very familiar with Go and be in that community and blah, blah, blah. So we end up going back to examples from Go, but like, it really is everywhere. But also, I don't know, are these people happy with it? Like, is usage of a
Mm,
tool necessarily meaning happiness with that tool? Like, we all use GitHub, but it's been kind of crazy lately.
yeah, GitHub's a good
It
example of a thing that's gone downhill over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Go, we're all using Go modules, not complaining, but also we know that our complaints are going to fall on deaf ears, number one. And number two, like, it's okay enough where we all know the edge cases and we're all kind of just actively avoiding. Like, we all know the floor has holes in it. We just walk around the holes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to someone that's new, they're going to probably fall in one of those holes or two. And I don't believe that's okay, but it seems that the industry is okay with it being okay, which is not okay. Sorry, a lot of okays there. But I don't know. I do see a level of mediocrity, and I'm not saying this from the perspective of like, oh, I'm better, I can do this better. I'm just saying this from the perspective of like, we seem to just build things once and then never want to continuously maintain them and change them over time as users give us feedback for it. And that needs to change.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of this ties back to like holding our leadership accountable, but I think also some of holding ourselves accountable. One of the things I thought about when I was, thinking about my feelings, my thoughts about all of this stuff is that like we as an industry can make big change if we want. Like, I still go back to how incensed people were 10 years ago over like the use of master and slave and blacklist and whitelist and all of that, and how big of a push people made to get that terminology changed.
Yep.
Which I'm still like, to this day, I mean, I remember talking to people and being like, why are we doing this? And it's like, well, it's a small step in the right direction. And shouldn't we take small steps? I'm like, yeah, but only if we're going to take the bigger steps afterward. And it feels like we never took those bigger steps. And it feels like we never like reconciled that at the end of the day. Like, the Go community feels like it still has a diversity problem at the end of the day. Like, not like a diversity of like the typical markers, but even just like diversity of thought. Like, it feels like dissent gets shut down in some weird ways that I'm like, this doesn't seem healthy. But it's like, well, where are all the people that were screaming about why we need to change Git master to main, talking about the lack of dissent and how unhealthy that is for communities? And like, where's the actionable plan to fix that sort of thing? Like, we're all sitting here being like, no, I mean, like, yeah, at least we got rid of the racist terms, we think. But like, we haven't fixed the problems with racism in the industry. We haven't made it. Because like, at the end of the day, like, I remember for a long time, I didn't really speak up about a lot of stuff, or I was very careful with what I said, because I was just like, well, if y'all are willing to kick out the white straight man, then like, what do minorities of color have? Like, we don't have any chance of really being heard or listened to. And I don't really think that the industry, like, I guess this is more specific to the Go community, but it's happened in other places too. But I don't think the Go community ever reckoned with that. So we, as a group of people, never really went back and said, okay, well, how do we make sure that we can repair damage that's been done here, or like fix things for the better? We just kind of all, I guess, collectively moved on, and then like Russ left, and everybody's like, well, Russ is gone now, so we all just got to move on. And I'm just like, that does not feel satisfactory. That does not feel satisfactory for this type of thing that we're going to fix. And we all decided that we wanted to fix these types of problems. That's why we went through all the trouble to rip out master and slave from all of our code bases and spend an annoying amount of effort doing that, instead of like, I don't know, actually fixing problems with racism in the industry. But that's just like another little microcosm of like, or I guess that's an example of what I mean when I said like mediocre or mid, right? Like, that the word changes were an easy thing to do because they're obvious and they don't require a lot of nuance and they don't require a lot of conversation. But when we're talking about like how to fix the thought diversity problem in the Go community, that's a much more difficult thing to figure out how to fix. There's not like a simple, easy solution. And like, maybe it's something that can't even be fixed at this point. Like, maybe we're at the point where there's been too much solidification and too much knocking down of people that just like no one is ever going to stand up again. People are just going to continue to leave and go to other languages or try to find other communities where they can be heard. But again, this is happening everywhere. So it's like, there's nowhere where people can go, except maybe going and being like a woodworker in the woods or something like that. But
yeah, it's a weird concept, because on one hand, you can't be inclusive to everybody, right? By definition. And
Right.
like that means any community that grows sufficiently large is going to basically alienate some of their people and then kind of encourage them to leave. And that's kind of frustrating, honestly, when you look at it kind of from that model. But then you also have this sort of like rigor as well, where you can get a little too dictatory or bossy or whatever you want to call it, and you kind
Right.
of drive people out that way, in the opposite way, right? Where you're very, very niche and a tight knit community where you don't really allow anybody else to join. Like there's just two sides of this problem, because I've seen both of it play out, and I've seen engineers that were very like selfish and not team players, and they were very rude to other people, like it's my way or the highway. And then I've seen places where it's like, everyone's opinion matters and we're going to account for all of it. And then the product just becomes crappy because you can't make a good product when you're trying to make it work for literally everybody, because there will be competing needs and wants there. So both sides of those coins are rough, but there's that like mediocrity in the middle that just kind of stays stagnant.
Yeah.
And I can't stand that, like make a decision, do something.
Yeah. And evaluate when you've made. I mean, I think that's like the feedback part of it. I'm still just kind of like, I know we've talked about this a lot. Our listeners are probably like, oh, you guys are talking about modules again.
Yeah.
But I think like part of me is still just kind of like trying to reconcile how and why we're here. Right? Like, why is it that that this is still popping up? Like, and what can we learn? How can we do better as a community? Like, where was the point where we all needed to push back some more? Where was the point where we needed to all kind of stand up and have a collective voice?
I mean, it's good to reflect on this because, you mentioned Bill like asking a question about tags. Bill's an expert with Go, right?
Right.
And even that tag behavior was confusing to him, right?
Right.
We're very, very proficient in Go, and we have discussions where things don't make sense. Where like, actually, this doesn't feel right in Go. And when you have enough of those experienced people hitting these issues, and you have two things that happen. One, the floor with holes problem, right? You have people that know how to walk around the holes, so they just walk around the holes and like, whatever. I don't care that my house has holes in it. I'm going to walk around them. Great. But then you have people that get tired of it and be like, you know what? Actually, I'm tired of my house having holes. I'm going to go buy another house. I'm leaving. And that's what you see. And that's the worst, like that's the worst outcome, because now you have people that were otherwise happy with the thing that they're using looking for something else, and you can, outside of the Go metaphor, you can look at this as your job or relationships or whatever. You can look at this from any lens. When mediocrity kind of settles in, that's when you get that sort of, you'll get to a point where you're like, you know what? The grass is greener and I'm going to try it. And like, not to get too, philosophical or relationship, but cheating happens in this scenario, right? Lying, job leaving, like all of these things happen in this area where mediocrity settles in and it has a home. And then now you're like, you know what? I'm done with the mediocrity. I will go cheat. I will go move. I will go lie. I will go get another job. Like, how can you blame someone, Yeah.
I mean, I feel like part of this is like a disconnection from reality that happens. Like the AI example is perfect, but it goes way before AI, right? Big data was also like this. The Bitcoin craze was like this. There's so many things. I think like the .com boom and bust was also like this, where it's just like everybody living on the hype, everybody living on like the copium, right? They're like, oh no, it's gonna work this way. Or really like with AI stuff too, like everybody really living off of the first most surface thought that we all have about it, right? When you look at AI, when it first came out, people are like, look at this is an amazing thing. This is going to replace so many people's jobs. And then when you like actually think about that for a moment, you're like, wait a minute, because of the error rate, the only people who are going to be able to successfully use this are people that know how to critically think and like know what they're doing to some degree and can see the nonsense when it pops up. I can kind of be like, that doesn't seem quite right. And it's like, those aren't the people, like that's not the way that we positioned any of this tooling. We never positioned it as like, this is a tool for the people that really think critically and know what they're doing, because like that's really basically saying this is a tool for the intellectuals of the world, which to some degree doesn't sell well with society as a whole. But there was ways you could, play that as like, oh, this is a tool to make everybody an intellectual, or this is a tool to make everybody be able to do high quality research, right? Like, but there's like none of that. It's all just like, this is going to eat all of the jobs in the world, and it's going to, destroy humanity, or it's going to, and just like, I'm like, why are we always bouncing to extremes of things, right? Like, I feel like, I know you weren't around as much when modules was first being proposed, but like, from what I can remember, the really big initial push for why we need to fix this problem is like, well, enterprises are not going to go anywhere to go if we don't fix this problem, and we got to fix it right now. And that was like the impetus given for like why we need to move fast. Like, we got to fix this now. We need to fix this in the next couple versions of Go, or like, there was like an implication like everybody's gonna stop using Go, right? Like, that was the big fear. And like, much like the everybody's gonna lose their job to AI, that was like an unfounded, I think, reality. Like, I don't think there's a practical reality where everybody was gonna abandon Go in even a 5-year period, right? But like, that was the motivation to go do that. That's why we couldn't take more time to sit and think about how we should do things, a different approach, and brainstorming different things. It was like, no, we must solve this problem right now. And I feel like we're making that same mistake again with AI. And I feel like we're just going to make that same mistake with the next thing that gets hype trained, and where we're all living on copium about, oh yeah, it's going to be great. This is going to be a fantastic thing we're doing.
Well, I mean, that's it. That's the mediocrity that you see in the industry. You have like, you gotta, I mean, you know this. I'm not telling you anything. You gotta understand that a lot of people in positions of power never earned it. Like, they just didn't earn it, right? Like, whether or not mommy and daddy gave you money and you just happened to like take many shots at something and finally get something going, or whether you were born into something, like whatever, or whether you had a connection where, I didn't have to interview for any of my jobs. I just knew all the right people and I just got in. Like, great. That's so you're not skillful is what I'm hearing. Okay, got it. Most people that are in these positions of power didn't earn it. And like, that creates that sort of complacency with the mediocrity. You have these people that are otherwise able to have power over some direction of a company or a product, and really they themselves aren't suited for it. They don't even use the product. You know what I mean? It's like it's like being freaking CEO of one company, but using the competitor's product as your primary thing. It's like, why are you even here? Why you don't even believe in the mission? Why are you here? Oh, the comp package was better. Okay, well, that's the problem.
Wow. Yeah.
But it's kind of really sad, and I see it, and then I look at Claude, right? Like Anthropic with Claude. They are flip-flopping so fast with the things they're releasing. They're like, we released this, we released that. Oh, now a new config file for Claude.md. Oh, but we also respect agents.md. Oh, but now we have rules and and markdown plus front matter equals rules. And you look at their matrix of configs that they support, and it's a mess, right? It's not a well thought out design system. It's just like a haphazardly put together design, right? And it's like, I can't even use the word design because it's not design. It's a haphazard put together thing. And it's like, we're okay with that. You know what I mean? We're okay with this sort of sloppy work again and again and again. And then eventually what's that going to lead to? It's going to lead to holes in your floor. Like, come on. Why are we're better than this? And, it's just a little frustrating to watch this come from the outside. And then people on the internet, it's like, but they have so much money, so it doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. They have money. But like, we all know as fast as money can come in, it can go out way faster.
Oh, yeah.
Like, come on.
Those run rates, people burn through that money real quick. And it's like one of those things too, where when I talk to people that aren't in tech about a lot of this stuff, it's clear that they, like, so many people just don't know what to think. They're like, I hear so many different things, and it's like, yeah, you just lose the context, because everybody is like, there's different sides screaming about different things. And to most of those people, I'm just like, yeah, they're all wrong. Like, everybody's wrong. Like, nobody knows where this is going to go or how we're going to wind up using it even 6 months from now, let alone 10 years from now. And I feel like that's part of our mediocrity, I think, too. And the midness of all of this is that there's an assumption that somebody that's saying something is going to be right. right? That like somebody that's spewing some of this nonsense, that one of them, it's like you might not like Elon Musk or Sam Altman or Peter Thiel or whoever, Jeff Bezos or whoever. Like you might not like one of those people, or you might not like some of their opinions. But I think there is this implicit assumption that like there's the two sides and that one of the sides is right. I think there's an assumption that like the boosters or the doomers, one of the sides is right. And I'm just like, but no, I mean, like none of them are right. And we know none of them are going to be right, but we all still keep pretending as if they're all going to be right for a reason that I can't really, it's hard for me to grasp like why we keep running into this same situation over and over and over, because it feels like the same thing from like cryptocurrency, where it's like people are like, oh yeah, Bitcoin's going to be nothing, or like Bitcoin's going to be everything, and it's like Bitcoin's just going to be another currency.
Yeah, that
was the reality of it. And like AI, all these things are just going to be more tools. That's the reality of it. And like, and I think there is potential for us to do really cool and innovative and revolutionary things. But like, we aren't going to be able to do that if we just keep sitting around being like, well, let's go listen to these boosters or these doomers or like these people that are like literally trying to replace humans with machines or with like computers. And it's like, that's never going to work the way you think it's going to work. You have to keep humans not just in the loop, but as an integral part of the loop. And I feel like that, and you have to keep a large number of humans as an integral part of the loop. I think that's like the common theme among a lot of this stuff, is that like a lot of the decision making that happens in tech, in our communities, a lot of the people that actually get to sit at the table and have a voice at all, like we're talking about very, very, very small numbers of people. So it's not only that you are like trying to replace people in general, but you're not getting a very wide consensus of like who people are at all at the end of the day. And it feels like that's something that we should be trying to fix, or we should be trying to figure out, but people are just not focused on doing that at the moment for some reason.
It turns into like, at the end of the day, a lot of this mediocrity stuff, I think, comes from the fact that it's either money focused or popularity focused. And you see this when you look at like celebrities, right? You have celebrities that are just famous in the definition of well-known and have a large following, quote unquote, whatever that means today. And like, they just get the deals and the parts, even though they don't deserve it. I mean, look at the uptick in celebrities in movie roles, like singer celebrities is what I'm really getting at. Like people that became famous outside of acting and film are just getting roles into like acting and film. It sucks. You don't deserve it. You're actually bad. Your acting sucks. The movie's worse for it, but yet you were signed because you're well known, so you could market the movie and kind of pump and dump it a little bit. And like, as long as that continues to be true, where like it doesn't matter how good or bad a person is, whether or not there's money attached to it is the only thing that matters. As long as that remains true, this mediocrity is going to keep going, and
yeah,
that's, I think, what happened with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is there was just a lot of money around it. And people are like, oh, if there's money, that means these people are smart. We equate intelligence and success with money so quickly that only the people that either have money already or have something that will make money or is making money, their ideas are seen as better, even though when you look at it from an intelligence standpoint, they're actually not the best. And we see the effects of this mediocrity in the industry. Companies constantly laying people off, copying one another with their products and not having any sort of unique value proposition. Like what leadership do you really have when company after company, oh, we couldn't foresee this coming. We grew so fast and we have to lay off. Like, so you're mean to tell me you didn't think ahead in the future? Like imagine if I applied that to any other company or part of life. Oh, sorry that the rocket didn't have any fuel in it. Sorry, I didn't think we were actually going to use this thing. Like what? Like, come on, man. You're supposed to be thinking ahead of what's going to happen. And it's weird. We just have this sort of mediocrity in there, and we keep giving people second and third and fourth chances is what pisses me off. You see someone like on LinkedIn or on social media, oh, I just spent 6 months here, up, left, now I'm 6 months there, up, left, now I'm 6 months there. It's like, so you're basically just wasting their salary and time because you didn't do anything in those 6 months.
Mm.
You know, why are we giving you a chance again and again and again? I don't understand it. You're actually doing harm, not good.
Yeah,
But
but I think part of it is too like I was thinking about Google as like a company where I'm like, there's a lot of really interesting, cool things that Google has done over the years. Where we get Gmail, obviously, like Google search was pretty revolutionary for its time. Also, like AdSense, DoubleClick, all of that. As much as we all hate it, it's like a very lucrative money printing press machine thing. But also, when I think about a lot of that, I'm like, a lot of this is also mid. Like Gmail, really cool, really interesting, robust thing, but like still like the most mediocre email thing you could have. It didn't like advance email. In fact, it more centralized email than anything else when we could have like, pushed email to be a more distributed thing where it's like more localized, like how email used to be, where it's not all just like hoarding data in data centers forever sort of situation. It's like, okay, so they built a cool email service a lot of people use, but it's like not, I wouldn't say it's like innovative. And like search was genuinely innovative for its time, but like the fact that even before the LLMs hit the market, TikTok was becoming people's main search engine for a lot of things. Like I have friends who started using TikTok instead of Google. And I'm like, you pioneered this thing and you couldn't pivot. So like now, like sure, in 1998, what Google does and did was pretty innovative. Even in like the mid 2000s, it was doing some innovative stuff. But now it's like Google search is pretty mid now. Actually, it's like worse than mid. Like I cannot use Google search because like the results get put up are like so many. It's like a page full of sponsored links. And I'm like, but this is not helpful when I'm trying to do research. And even their ads platform, I'm like, I am so tired of going to a website to read an article and having the page crash every time I scroll down because there's so many ads getting loaded in and they're so awful because it's just like a money grab instead of like, let's actually make this a good experience for people. And then, of course, you have to play the war with like all of the ad blockers and everybody building ad blocking into everything because like that's the only way you can like really read a web page because there's all of these ads that crash the page whenever you scroll on it. So it's like even one of the biggest tech companies, this is not exclusive to Google either. Like Meta has the same problem. Amazon has the same problem. Like trying to search for products on Amazon is a nightmare now because there's so many sponsored links. I'm like, why did I just see the same product 5 different times? Because like half of them are sponsored and half of them are organic, right? And even Apple like has stumbles and flubs. Like how did they fumble AI so bad? And how did they fumble like so many of the things they've done like incredibly terribly? It's like why are your products not better, right? Like why don't I have a good tower? Why do I just have like an inordinately expensive Mac Studio as my option? And why are these products not updated in a consistent cadence? Like, why are you coming with an M3 and then the next couple months later you have like an M5 something? Like, what is with your release cadence here of your chips? Like, it's like every tech company you look at, there's like a whole bunch of mid stuff. But that's like, the problem isn't necessarily that it's mid. The problem is that I think we're all trying to sell it as this is all amazing.
yeah,
Right. It keeps getting sold as like, this is the greatest thing, as like, yeah, this is the best we could do. And I think that's the point that annoys me. Like, it annoys me about Go. It annoys me about these companies. It annoys me about AI. It annoys me about all of this stuff is that like, we want to be the industry of innovation. And yet every single time we have a chance to do innovation, we're just like, that seems hard. And we go do something else instead.
basically, yeah. I mean, I don't want to sit here and say that mediocre, boring sort of systems are bad because they're great and they're all around us in the world, right? Like we don't give a second thought to our elevators and escalators and air conditioners and all these other things that would just work and they're boring and they're not innovative there and they don't need to be. Right? I'm not going to sit here and say that like mediocrity doesn't have its place, right? Because it does. But I agree with what you're saying that when you act like this mediocre system is like the bee's knees, right? Does anyone even know what that means? Bee's knees. When you act like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, I'll use one of those then.
Okay, boomer.
Yeah.
Bee's knees, greatest
Boomer.
thing since sliced bread. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I was raised by my grandma. Okay, I have these old things. But when we act like these things are so great when they're really mediocre, and things being both the product or a technical thing and the people, right? I don't want to get away from the people. When we act like these people and the products are amazing when they're really just okay, that hurts everybody. right?
Yeah.
And it's actually a slap in the face to those who are actually trying and studying to work hard and care about things to improve it, because they're just sitting there like, I could have told you this for free, or I could have done this for cheaper, or if you have those sort of thoughts where you're like, I could have done a better job for free, or I could have done this for cheaper, or if you have those thoughts, you're likely in the same boat as Kris and I here, where you can see the mediocrity.
Yeah.
Because it will frustrate you, especially when you see people that don't really look like they deserve it from the outside, kind of winning again and again and again, and you're like, oh my god, this is not even a good app. That's frustrating. That's hard to swallow.
Yeah. And like on the other side too, there's like, I think of people like Mitchell, right? Mitchell Hashimoto and like Ghosty. And I'm like working on this like set of articles about libghosty and like what a terminal platform looks like instead of just terminal emulation. And it's like, but that is like actual innovation in like what he's doing with that whole setup and what his plan is and the vision is. And it's like in an area where I don't think anybody was like thought we needed innovation or we needed change or we needed things to be better.
We do a lot of bad things repeatedly. like that's just what I'm learning. I mean, I was talking to my colleagues earlier today about like sort of the doomerism side of AI, where I've been using AMP code. We signed up for an AMP code thing at Oxide. I've been using it to just try out their thread sharing features and whatever. Cause I liked how Mitchell was linking to threads and you can see kind of his thought flow and whatever. So I was using it at work and I was using the threads and I was like, this is pretty cool. And I was chatting in our LLM channel at work and we were like, it's sort of dystopian because this whole thread sharing context can be used to basically say like, Matt, you're not providing any value to this. It's the robots doing all the work here, not you. Like, what the hell? Why do I need you? And it could be used in a dystopian way to monitor employees and whatnot. And it got me thinking, even before we jumped onto this to record this, it got me thinking about like, what value am I providing? Right? Like, am I not like what value am I providing, but like, am I providing value in these situations? Like, or if a company weaponized this against me, would I be targeted? Was basically like my frame of reference for thinking about this. Like, am I on the chopping block here, based on my usage, or am I really actually providing value? So I went back and looked at some of my threads and I was like, oh, the agent went off and gave me incorrect information here, and here, and I guided it back. So yes, I do know. It was like more of like a pat on the back, like, oh, I actually know things. Yes, okay, got it. But for a second there, I was like, you know what? Yeah, am I actually just useless? You know what I mean? Am I one of the mediocre, useless people, like, or not? And it was a nice moment of reflection for me because we all like to think we're the best in our minds, and I know I'm not the best programmer out there, but I know I'm not the worst either. And it was just interesting to see, to kind of get that frame of thought. And if I was working at a company that wasn't Oxide, I'd probably be worried, right? I'd be worried that a good developer who cares about the product has a risk of being let go for appearing mediocre because of this system used to measure them. Like, I'd be freaking out about that. And yeah, it's just interesting thought. I even DM'd the colleague I was talking to. I was like, yo, you got me in a thought spiral right now, man. Like, I'm just spiraling here.
It's funny though, because like there is something I will say that I think I was wrong about, which is like we had Steve on one of the episodes. I don't remember which episode, but he kind of like, we're talking about how like the LLMs we have and like this agent coding thing we're doing is a lot like compiling. And I'm like, but that's not, one of these is like deterministic output, blah, 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 blah. And I have a whole reason for like why that was wrong. But I think I was wrong there. I think that LLMs and agentic coding as we're using them is compilation. Because when you actually look at what a compiler is doing, it's doing some sneaky stuff down there. Like Matt Godbolt is doing this advent of compiler optimization or something like that. Basically going through and being like, oh yeah, this is how compilers actually work. And one of the ones that he did was what an add instruction looks like. And the ways that the compiler will look at your code and be like, oh, you're just doing an add. But because of the weird quirks of how like x86 works, doing an add would actually be like a whole bunch of nonsense instructions. So instead, I'm going to use this instruction that has nothing to do with adding, called load effective address. I'm going to use it for addition because I can like shoehorn it into making it work for addition. And it's only one instruction I have to run now instead of a whole bunch of them. And it's like, that is clearly generative. It's like, it's not just taking like, oh, I wrote add and it's now doing an add. It's like looking at your code and being like, but what are you doing? And then finding a way to do that thing in the most efficient way possible with like the fewest number of instructions possible. I like, you don't like that's specific to x86 as well. Like ARM doesn't have this problem because ARM's instructions are structured differently, so it can do other things. But there were also other things like with like if you zero out a variable, it won't assign it to 0, it'll just XOR it with itself. And you're like, why is it going to do that? But it's like, oh, that's actually a smaller instruction than zeroing out, because 0 is going to take more bytes. So you have to actually represent 0 in the instruction code. So it's like, oh, it's going to do this other thing of just, this other way to zero something out. And it's going to decide when and how to do that. And by using the O flags, the optimization flags, it will do more and more and more optimization, do more and more of these quirky, weird things. But obviously, in some ways that could probably lead to bugs if the compiler gets a little too wild. But it's also like, this is clearly generative. Like, this is clearly like looking at your intention and then producing an output from that of something that will like run and meets your intention as much as possible. It's just a very constrained generative system as opposed to LLMs, which are much wider generative systems. But it's like, no, these things are actually like very closely aligned. And I know that like back when we first started getting compilers, people probably had the thought, or they did have the thought that like these compilers are going to replace all the programmers. And that clearly did not happen. So in a way, it's kind of silly that we're now seeing something that is basically like a new age compiler. And we're all saying, oh my God, this thing might take my job in some way. But it's like, the thing that happened after we got compilers is that there were more programming jobs because there was more programming to do. There was more software to engineer because we had these better tools. And that is most likely what's going to happen here with all of these LLMs and agentic coding tools that we have, is that there's going to be more people writing software and more need for more people to write software, not fewer. And that just, it seems like so obvious to me when you put it in that context, when you look at the kind of past of where we've been and how those tools work and how these tools work and how people are using them. But if you take the shortcut and are just like, oh, well, these chats show that you can just have the LLM do the work, and you don't look at that and see all the places where the operator was like, nope, you're wrong, gotta go this other way, or nope, this thing is incorrect, you gotta do it better. Like, I catch myself all the time talking to Claude, and I'm just like, I don't think that's right. I think you've gotten this wrong. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I did get this wrong. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's good. You can't just blindly follow these things. You need to have that critical thinking skill. You need to have some level of domain knowledge so you can be like, that doesn't seem right. Something seems wrong. Maybe we've overcooked on this idea a little bit and we need to wind it back a little and try something else. But it is interesting that we keep winding up in this place where people are like, no, or we keep thinking, oh, are we going to get replaced by this stuff? When it's like, no, our jobs are going to change as a result of this stuff, but not likely get eliminated unless you saw your job as like writing out code, which I don't think most software engineers see their job as typing the code out. I think most of us see it as engineering software, designing and building software.
You would think. I mean, honestly, you really would think, but I think that the new, like, maybe I don't want to say newer people coming in, because it's not just them. There is a subset of people that think of the job as writing code. That's the value prop. And like, companies are measuring the value prop by code metrics. So it's easy to see how like writing code is the value prop. But there's just so much, and this is kind of the thing that bothers me about the mediocrity thing. There's so much glue work and unseen work that people do that keeps a company going that's not immediately measurable. And that's kind of what scares me, in a sense. If you were to like look at my GitHub graph compared to other people's GitHub graphs, it's not the best. But like, I'm doing all all this other work, such as organizing our issues, writing RFDs, like responding to discussions in chat, that like keeps other people unblocked, right? And keeps kind of the information flow going. That's not strictly code. But if you were to measure me on strictly code merit, you'd probably be like, Matt, like, why do I need you compared to like someone else? You know what I mean? And that worries me, because at some level you do have to know how to play this mediocrity game, right? Like, to protect yourself. And it's less true for me at Oxide because, you know, I do make my contributions well known and blah, blah, blah. But, and like the culture here is different. But if I were at some big company, I'd really have to play the corporate game more, you know, and I would really have to like game the system more than I do today, because they wouldn't be valuing the other work. You know, they wouldn't be valuing the time spent writing RFDs. You know, they'd be like, where's the code, man? And it's a balancing act, and it's very, very difficult to do.
Yeah. No, it's been a while now where we as an industry have gotten swept in, like, I guess not a while, but we keep getting swept into this idea that like we can get data. We can measure concretely like people's worth, their value, what they're doing, their productivity, even the productivity of a project. People are like, we can just sit down and we can get some concrete number understanding of it. Yeah. And like that has never been true, and it will never be true, because we are never going to be able to measure all of the contributions that somebody makes. It's just not a practical thing to measure. And even if you could measure it, or even if you do try measuring it, you're not going to come up with like a way to stack rank people, or even a way to really compare people and say this person is more useful to the company than this other person is. At least not in any real sense, outside of like the trivial, like someone just doesn't do their job, or someone's just really bad at their job. But that's like a hiring practice problem. Like your hiring system, if it's allowing people to get in that are just don't do their job or don't do work, like that's something that needs to get fixed. Or like the hire fast, fire fast mentality, which is like not great, but like being able to like clear out people that are clearly not doing their work, clearly not doing the job. That's one thing. But once you clear through that simple stuff, like the rest of it's like nearly impossible to figure out. Right? Like the idea of stack ranking is like a silly little thing that Jack Welch came up with, and that we should all just leave in the past, because it's foolish and it's silly, and yet we still do it every year. Like this is like the time of year when everybody's submitting all of their end of year reviews, and we're doing performance reviews so we can stack rank people and decide who gets the better bonuses and who gets the regular bonuses and who's going to get canned. Right? And it's just like, why do we do this? Like, why do we even think about it in this way? Why are we trying to compare people to each other, but like, why do we not recognize that the work that actually, the stuff that holds the house together are the nails and the fasteners and the glue, or the fasteners and the glue. Like the beams are not just going to hold themselves together at the end of the day, right? The drywall does not stay up on the wall without screws, right? The subfloor does not stay attached to the floor joist without the glue and the screws, right? Like you need these things, and yet we have no practical way in this industry, or really in general, to count the number of screws, or count the cohesive, or the cohesion. I don't know. Count how good the glue is at gluing things together, right? We don't have a way of doing that for like the practical, like analogous thing within an organization. And usually we're relying on one person to be like 70% of the screws, and it's like, no, you need to have more people. Like you need to have more fasteners, more things that hold the whole organization together. But like that's the stuff that's really hard to measure at the end of the day. Or I'll caveat that. It's hard to measure if you want to do simplistic, foolish measuring. I think you can actually figure out who's like vitally important to your organization if you understand how to actually ask people questions, right? Like, you know, if you ask someone a question, most of the time they're going to say way more about themselves than they're going to say about the other person, right? So if you ask people questions about themselves, you will actually get really good answers that will give you a lot of insight, right? If you ask people, instead of saying, what do you think of coworkers X performance in the year, saying, which coworker would you like to work with more? Which coworkers would you like to work with less? Right? And then if you take the aggregate of that, you can really quickly find out who's integral to your organization and who is not. And you don't have to do some weird performance review juggle nonsense thing to figure that out. But like, that feels a lot more fuzzy to people. That feels a lot more like not as concrete, but like that's how this is. Like if you have invisible work, you have to actually ask people in ways that can give a little bit of visibility to it instead of just saying we're going to leave it as invisible and move on with our day.
Yeah, and also like there's an element of popularity contest there, but that could be mitigated by not just asking who your favorite coworkers are, not favorite, but like whose coworkers you like to work more or less with, but also why, right? Just talking a little bit about what makes that so, which should be part of your answer anyway. But you know how people are.
Yeah, I mean it can be hard to answer that though too as well. Like the thing is like actually getting people to say what's actually in their mind is interestingly difficult.
Yeah.
Because like people will always modulate what they're going to say based on what they think their audience they're saying it to wants to hear. Right. So if you're talking to your boss, you might be, and like if you know your boss like likes someone a little bit more, maybe you're not going to say something negative about that person. Or if you know your boss doesn't like this person, you might not say something as positive about that person. Right. So you have to like, it's like you really have to start divining things. You have to be more like a veterinarian than a doctor, right? You got to be like, I'm going to pretend my patient can't speak and try to diagnose what's wrong with them instead of, trusting their lying mouth, because that's, as House said, patients always lie. It's like, like people are always, anything they say, any type of evaluation you ask them to give, there's going to be some element of a lie in there. And you have to properly handle that, which a lot of people in dealing with data don't want to do. They don't want to deal with that fuzziness. They don't want to deal with that, really the work you have to put in to understand all of this.
That is true. It is a lot of work. Like a good signal is, I mean, this is kind of too late sometimes, but when someone leaves and people are very upset that they leave, that's a good signal that that person was probably doing some really good things.
Yeah.
But when someone leaves and you're like, oh, I expected that, that's a good signal that you should have caught that sooner.
Yeah.
And obviously both of those are too late because there's already been a decision. But you need to kind of do something there, because I think about that in the context of Oxide, where, we're very focused on hiring and keeping the hiring process, correct and leaning on our hiring process and keep leaning on it. But we're also focused on staying lean. And it's hard. It's so hard to do that when you're in a stage that we're in, where we're in this nice growth period and, we have funding and customers and blah, blah, blah. Like we're in a good state, which naturally attracts people that kind of want to just board the rocket ship.
Yeah.
And how do you like reconcile someone who just wants to board the rocket ship versus someone who's like, I've been wanting to be an astronaut my whole life. Right. Because those are two different people. And you really have to try to filter out the former and select the latter. And it's hard. And I've been thinking about this whole thing. This is a good topic, because I've been thinking about this mediocrity topic as it relates to our hiring at Oxide. Not that like we are or aren't hiring mediocre people, but just it should be something in your mind. There's a bar here, right? And we should be trying to keep that bar high to keep the quality of the company going, because otherwise you can get to a point where you look up and, oh wait, Oxide's 500 people now. Like what the heck happened? Why did we have 500 people? We don't need this many people. And now you're burning money and blah, blah, blah. Like, and then now you're like every other company out there who has to lay off. Like we don't want that. So you have to think about that now while we're sub 100. And yeah, these are just all things that have been on my mind and applying to other companies, where it pisses me off when I see other companies, oh, we're sorry, we grew too fast and we didn't know, like that. It actually really infuriates me. And I'm trying not to be mean on the podcast and like get angry on the pod. I want our listeners to have happy experiences listening to us. But it really gets me so pissed off when a leader comes in and says, our bad, we didn't anticipate this, when that's the common sense like outcome.
Yeah.
What do you mean you didn't anticipate literally the most common outcome for this thing?
Yeah.
You're just being an and yeah, it infuriates me. And then we give those same leaders another chance and another chance. And You know what? There's probably more things we need to talk about on break because I need to use expletives. Is it expletives or expletives? I don't know how to say it. Expletives. Thank you. I don't know why I say expletives. It's
one of those things. If you read the word before you've heard it, and then you just get stuck.
I think that's why, because I read the word first.
Yeah, it took me forever to properly pronounce lecithin instead of lectin, because I was like, no, it's lecithin.
Expletive. Nah, expletive. No.
And with that, let's go to break. Okay. So, viewer/listener, how did you like or dislike that conversation? I'm sure we're gonna have some interesting feedback from that conversation, especially where it started. But yeah, I feel like we had a good, robust conversation about mediocrity and the bigness of this industry. But as always, let us know your thoughts on social media, in Gopher Slack, in Changelog Zulip, wherever you can find us. This episode of Fall Through was hosted by Chris Brando with co-host Matthew Sanabria. Fall Through is produced by Chris Brando and Angelica Hill, and our beats are by Breakmaster Cylinder. And done. Oh, we gotta do an intro, right? As per usual, we will have bonus content for subscribers. If you're not a supporter. Wow, I'm botching this intro. Anyway, I'm gonna have to edit that together. Or maybe I'll just do another one at the end. We'll see.
Excuse me. I don't know. I stopped it. Okay, I stopped my sneeze. My problem.
I don't know why I'm waving my arms, but I'm angry or happy or something. Being a weirdie. An ASMR intro.
I can give you a potato chip chomp right into the mic.
Oh, God.
Oh, I liked that one.
We are a professional and serious podcast. That is what we are. Anyway.
Speak for yourself, but okay. Can we do an ASMR outro?
No.
You know what I mean? Like I know things, I think.
And I was like, that's a good slogan.
Picturing more being like,
it's the sun.
Somebody that I used to go. Ding.
And done.
Nice.
We did it.
We did it.
It's the sun. Yeah.
Perfect introduction. 10 out of 10, no notes.
Goodbye.
Viewer.
For some reason, I thought there was supposed to be more in there. And I'm like, nope, there's no guest. It's just us. It's just me and Matt. Okay. We shall stop and we shall start again.